Hi, everyone. Welcome to the last week of class. Before I go over the exam, I just want to let you know how much I have appreciated all of you this session. I think, those of you that have had me in a class before know that I place a lot of value on our discussions, and I think this class had some very deep, rich discussions. So I really appreciate that. And the quality of the work that has come out of this class has been exceptional. So thank you so much. As you saw with my announcement the other day, the course evaluations are open, and I would really appreciate if you could take a few minutes and give me some feedback, just like I send you feedback on your assignments and discussions. I really appreciate getting feedback from all of you. It helps me become a better educator, and it gives me information to reflect on as I want to improve my practice too. So again, I'd really appreciate if you could take a few minutes and do that. So let's hop right into the exam. This was not an easy exam, and I have to say that all of you did, for the most part, really well on it. So kudos, you did a good job. You obviously were able to rely on what you have read and go back into your text and do some research, and you did a really good job. I'm only going to go over a few questions because there really wasn't a huge trend for any particular questions that people got wrong. So I think for the most part, the correct answers that popped up, you can probably figure out, where it is you went wrong. One question, though, that did seem to have difficulties for a few people was question 12. And that is, in general, all behaviors occur either to obtain positive reinforcement or avoid negative reinforcement, except one of the following. Many people said sensory conditions or attention. And the correct answer is actually consequences. Consequences are separate from that positive and negative reinforcement. And what I plan to do, because I think that that's it was sort of vague the way it was described in the book. You will notice your score that everybody's going to get an additional 4 points because I'm going to throw that question out. I just think that one was sort of difficult. And the other one that seemed to have some issues with a few people was about talented and gifted students. So to keep in mind, IDEA requires that we identify gifted and talented students, but the IDEA does not require any services be provided. Many of you checked receives funding similarly to exceptional categories identified in IDEA, and it doesn't. So that's one thing to remember, is that gifted and talented students are required to be identified if you suspect that they're gifted and talented, but once they're identified, the law doesn't require the school district to do anything, and they don't receive any funding to do anything. Somebody emailed me over the course of the week and asked about twice exceptional students. Those would be students that are both a student with a disability and also have gifts and talents. And yes, you can be twice exceptional. You can be gifted and talented and, for instance, have a learning disability, or a motor disability, but still be gifted and talented in another area. So I hope that clears up I think the two questions that gave people the most amount of trouble. And then the one other thing I just want to bring up that I saw in a few of your short answer questions was the word mainstreaming. So I know that we hear the word mainstreaming a lot when it comes to including children in general education classrooms. What I'm going to ask you to do is really think about the word. I think it's a pretty loaded word. Mainstreaming tends to imply that a student with a disability has to earn their way into the mainstream, while we've been talking about responsible inclusive practices. So I would encourage you to not use the word mainstreaming, because I do think that that does have some baggage that's attached with it. And typically, when we hear about mainstreaming, it's a child who has been in a special ed setting that little by little is included, mainstreamed into a general ed class. And I think that's where it sort of got its, connotation from. So again, it is sort of a loaded concept. A lot of people in the field right now really don't use that word anymore, just because it is such a loaded word. So I would encourage you to consider that as you're talking about inclusion. So for our last week, this week, our discussion really is for you to reflect on what you've learned this week, to really think about what things you learned, what things confused you. And I will bet IDEA and 504 will fall under confusing for a few people. What was essential? What new learning did you feel is really, really important to you? And what were you surprised by? So I look forward to seeing some recordings and reading some posts from all of you. And I think it'll be really interesting to hear from everybody. This is one of my favorite discussions of the course because I love to hear you reflect back on what you've learned. You're also going to be doing your classroom observations. I did hear from a couple of you that are actually working in schools that asked if you could do observations in a school if possible, and we made those arrangements. Because of COVID, we're not requiring you to go into a school, so we're asking that you choose a minimum of 3 videos and make sure you give me the links when you submit your assignment. And then there are specific questions you should answer as a result of the video observation. I know it's not perfect. And sometimes it's difficult to see things. That's why it's a minimum of 3 videos. So you can hopefully find enough videos to be able to make some pretty good observations. And then your final sort of culminating assignment is to take a look at one of the categories of federal disability and do either a paper or presentation going over the history, the etiology or cause, the implications of this disability. And I did give the example in the assignment that if you choose deaf and hard of hearing, there's something called deaf culture. So that's sort of a social cultural implication. Or if you choose to look at autism, the fact that, things have changed with autism as far as the categories that are recognized. Asperger's is no longer recognized in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. That certainly has some cultural implications. And then lastly, describe some accommodations and modifications that you think a child identified in a category would find beneficial to help them access their education. As always, you can email me or call me during office hours if you have any questions. Again, I have so look forward to getting to know all of you a little bit better. I know that the world is still a little bit topsy-turvy and things are a little bit different, but you guys really have stepped up, and I really feel like everyone in this class has learned a great deal about special education. Hopefully, I will see some of you in the future in other classes, and I wish everybody well and have a great summer. Take care.